Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Look, I get that it's important to communicate with my husband about what I want in the bedroom, and that's going to lead to a better sex life. But how do I figure out what I actually even want? That is the question that we are answering in today's episode. Welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, the sex and intimacy podcast for Catholic women. My name is Ellen Holloway, and I'm a Catholic speaker and coach who specializes in sex and marital intimacy. And I am on a mission to help you actually enjoy and desire good, holy sex with your spouse. Today, I am joined by my amazing semi-regular co-host, Kathleen Chabanis. I don't know what I want. How do I figure out what I want? It's regular for us to kind of mention something along the lines of like, look, you've got to ask for what you want. You have to talk to your husband and say, I want you to do this. I want to spend more time in foreplay. And in fact, you can insist on that. You can say, look, I need to spend more time in foreplay. I need this arousal to even be prepared for intercourse. And that is a boundary that you can hold. Like, it's actually not okay for your husband to be like, I'm not going to do foreplay because I don't like it. Like, your body needs time to get sexually aroused. And that is okay. And that's a boundary you can hold. But also, like, it doesn't have to be like you guys are fighting about having foreplay. Like, explain to your husband, like, doing these kinds of things, foreplay. I'm using foreplay as the example because that's just what popped in my head. Yeah. But just, maybe manual stimulation, clitoral stimulation during intercourse, whatever it is. Doing these things, dear husband, is going to make me enjoy sex more. It's going to make me want sex more. Like, your husband wants to please you. And like, what a win-win if you are receiving wonderful sexual pleasure during sex, and therefore you want to have sex more, and then your husband gets to have sex more. Like, what a great win-win.
Seriously.
And so, like, if you explain that to your husband, then, I mean, gosh, he's got to be on board.
If he's not, there's another problem.
Yeah, right. So, but we have to take the time to explain it. Like, it doesn't always just like happen. Yeah. Our husband just doesn't immediately know. And so, but then begs the question, okay, great, Ellen, I'm on board. Thanks, Ellen and Kathleen, for telling me that I need to tell my husband what I want. But what do I tell him?
How do I know what I want? Yeah.
How do I know what I want?
That is the eternal question, I think, for every Catholic woman who's just like, well, I mean, I don't know, like, how am I supposed to figure this out? Yeah.
Well, and it can be kind of confusing of like, how am I supposed to figure this out? Because you know what, every like secular sex therapist, or like even some of the Christian like sex educators and stuff, what they are like touting is go masturbate and figure out what you like.
Right.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Well, then what the heck am I supposed to do?
Yeah, right. Excuse me. Okay, real quick on why not to do that, right? Sexual pleasure is designed to prepare the body for the sexual act. So sexual pleasure goes with sex. Mm-hmm. We should not be intentionally sexually arousing ourselves or intentionally giving ourselves sexual pleasure without the intention of intercourse. And I mean, and the same kind of goes like, but with you and your husband, you should not be like intentionally sexually arousing each other, but not planning on having sex because you're frustrating the natural process. I love that word frustrating for like what it is. Like, it's because we can see it, right? You wouldn't sit in the driveway and just like rev the engine and then just like turn the car off. Like, what would the point of that be?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the same thing. I heard that analogy somewhere, and that is not my own, right? But I don't remember where I heard it.
Yeah, no, that's a great analogy.
I can't give credit to that analogy.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So how do we figure it out? Kathleen, you've been talking for 5 minutes. What the heck?
I know. Well, here's what I will say, and I will say that this is something that I feel like I say this in every episode. This is because I'm just one of you. That's it. This is something that I have very much struggled with. And yeah, and it is hard. It's just like, well, what do you do? What I have found, I won't say like I've figured it all out, but one thing that I have found to be helpful is using the imagination, right? Like we are allowed to use our imagination to sort of prepare and enter in to sex. We are allowed to imagine our husband and fantasize about our husband. Like that is good, right? That's it. We talked about in a few episodes back, you know, the things that we can't do, like romance novels and kind of that kind of stuff. But when you're using, you know, your experience that already exists with your husband to sit and ruminate and imagine and think, when you do that, you will find that there are certain things you will think about him doing that make you just feel more turned on than others, right? And that actually can excite you for sex. So take note of those things. Like think back to one really great like time you guys had, right? And think about the things that he did, kind of like replay it in your head and find where you feel really turned on, you know, just be like, oh, yeah. What were those things that he did? Those are things that I like. And even if you can't necessarily pinpoint like, oh, well, I don't even know what he did. What was he touching, right? Like what kind of touch was it? Was it a softer touch? Was it a firmer touch? You know, like what was the touch? What was the sensation? Where was the area? Those kinds of things. And then even if you don't know exactly what it is you like about it or what you would want him to do, just any kind of that feedback is really good, right? Like, oh, I liked when I felt this sort of touch, however you want to do it or you did do it, I don't know, but like I liked when I felt this sort of touch here, right? Or when you do this sort of touch and then lead it into that, you know, or sometimes it's like pushing many buttons at one time, you know, which is like,
I'd like you to use both hands.
Yeah, I want you to use both hands and hit both these areas. And that's pretty, you know, that can be pretty mind blowing. Like, just think of those things that have happened in, you know, past experiences or just in wherever your mind goes when you're imagining intercourse with your husband, when you're imagining being with him, right? Even if it's something he hasn't done before, but you imagine him doing something, right? Like, and it turns you on. What is it, right? What is it that he's doing in your imagination? And then give him that feedback. Tell him, hey, I'd be really curious if you tried this, right? And just like, but the imagination is so powerful. I'm like into this thing right now with the imagination where I'm just like realizing it has all of these powers that I have just not tapped into well over the last like 10 years of my life. That I'm
Our brains are so creative.
So creative.
Like so creative. But you know what else our brains can do? Is your thoughts create your results. And when I first heard this, I was like, that's dumb. That's not true.
Yeah.
Like my circumstances create my results. No. Your thoughts create your results. And let me give you an example. Let's say you do this imagination exercise. And maybe sex has like never been very good. But you go ahead and you kind of sit down and you could even journal it out if you're like a writing person. But you think through like what would be an incredible sexual experience with my husband.
Yeah.
And you kind of write out all the things that your husband would do. Now, if we are not aware of our thoughts as well, this experiment is not going to work. All right? Because again, let's say that you've never had a good sexual experience. Your thoughts, whenever you come to a sexual experience, is like, he doesn't care about me. This isn't going to be good. I'm not going to experience pleasure. I don't actually really like this. I'm just doing it for him, right? Those are going to be the you know, flavor of thought that you have when you come into having sex. You're going to do this experiment. You're going to do this thought exercise. And you're going to list out all sorts of things that your husband can do. And then you're going to tell him, hey, I want you to do all of these things. Now, if you go into the sexual encounter and your husband does all of those things, but your thoughts are still, I don't like this. I don't want this. It's just for him. I'm not going to experience pleasure. because that's what you're used to thinking when it comes to sex, none of those things are going to work.
Yeah.
And maybe when you were sitting there imagining, like you might have even been getting a little bit aroused, like getting excited to have sex. And then you go and have sex and you're like, here's my list. Please do all these things. And sex sucks again. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because you kept holding on to all of those like limiting negative thoughts about sex. But when you were imagining it, the things you didn't write down are the thoughts that you were having. Mm. You were imagining your husband initiating in a certain way. And the thought about your husband was, oh my gosh, he cares so much about me and he wants to do this for me. Mm-hmm. And he's doing this exactly the way I want it because he loves me so much. And you're imagining having foreplay and your thoughts about your husband are, oh, he knows what I want. He listens to what I ask for. Yeah. He desires to love me. He desires to pleasure me. We have all of these positive thoughts about our husband. But if we don't take those positive thoughts to actually having sex, sex is still going to suck.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. It just is going to suck. So you need to do this imagination and you need to take stock of the things you're thinking about your husband while you're imagining all the things he's going to do, because we're imagining all these things and that's creating these thoughts, these very positive thoughts about our husband. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say something kind of wild here. Those thoughts are more important than what your husband does. And no matter what your husband does, you have access to those thoughts at any time. Mm. So even if you do this thought experiment, you think about a few things you want your husband to try, you ask him to do that and he does none of them, you're still allowed to think, my husband loves me. He's doing things because he cares for me. He wants to pleasure me. He's going out of his way to do something that is pleasurable to me. All of those thoughts, all of them are available to you at any time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They are. Stop saying they're not.
Right. Yeah. No, that's so good. That's such a good point.
And that's wild. It's so wild. Yeah. So actually, we could figure out none of the things that you actually want, but you could still completely transform the next time you have sex by transforming the thoughts that you have about sex and about your husband.
Yeah. Wow.
It's wild. It's wild.
That is wild. Yeah, we are so...
Because
go ahead.
Our brains are so powerful.
They're
Sorry.
so powerful. No, they're so powerful. And why is it that women are so good at using the power of the brain for negativity than for positivity? I feel like that's honestly, I mean, not every woman. There are plenty of women who are good at using it for but I think it's so much just a temptation of the devil and a natural inclination for women to imagine the negative versus the positive. I mean, I know that's me 1000%, and that's something that in sort of rediscovering this power of the imagination that I'm really trying to focus on is like, I can't sit and play with my kids. Like, I can't play pretend with my kids. I am like awful at it. I find it exhausting and mentally draining.
You are so not alone in that.
Oh my gosh.
I try so hard.
It is so mentally draining. But let me tell you that when I call my 10-year-old son who's at home while I'm running an errand to check in and he doesn't answer the phone, I am so quick to make up 1,000 different scenarios of why he's not answering the phone. And they're all terrible, right? It's like, he's not answering the... I literally did it this morning on my way back from dropping other kids off at school. I was like, why is he not answering the phone, right? And I did. I had to force myself to assume like a positive. And sure enough, what I assumed was exactly what had happened. And I was like, wow, great. But
he was like watching TV and didn't hear the phone ring.
He like left it. He was in the basement when I left and he left it down in the basement. And I knew that was, but anyway, regardless, that it's just so much in our nature for some reason to just, it's so easy for us to imagine the worst, to create the negative. And it's so much harder and takes so much effort to imagine and create the positive. And I think it's a real challenge for us that we have to focus on in every aspect of our lives, including our sex lives, right? Like let's use that imagination. Let's not imagine like how upset we are with our body, how we're not at the right weight we want to be at, and how we feel this like lack of confidence, and how, man, he's probably like exhausted because he's trying so hard and I feel really bad about it. Like, we need to stop doing that, and we need to start, exactly like Ellen said, inserting the positive. My husband is a good man and he is happy to do this, and he is like tackling this list because he loves me and because I am worth it. And this relationship is worth it. And this experience together is worth it, right? Like, we have to start inserting those. And I think that's a huge piece to discovering what we like, is when we can just put ourselves in that positive mindset.
Absolutely. Well, and this is something I talk a little bit about in the orgasm course that I have, of just like, even if you're not experiencing sexual pleasure, sex is still powerful and unitive and good.
Yeah.
But it's also a good thing to, let's figure it out and let's experience sexual pleasure.
Yeah.
And so it's like this, it's this both thing, right? We want to have both sides. I got on like a soapbox about your brain. Like, your brain is so powerful. We need to get your brain on board. But then also, we do need to figure out the things that your body responds to. And so, like Kathleen said, a great place to start is doing this imagination exercise and coming up with, like, start with 2 or 3 things. Do not give your husband a list of 15 things to try the next time you have sex.
Don't be that lady.
Well, I think it becomes kind of mechanical, checkboxy at that point. If you're like, here's all these things I want you to try, like just pick, even like just 1 or 2 things each time that you have sex. I think sometimes when we try to tackle everything at once, nothing works.
Yeah.
But if we just pick 1 or 2 things to work on while we're also working on our brain stuff, then we're going to have more success, because we can try those things. And if they didn't work, then the next time we can try a few more things on the list. And that's where it starts getting fun. And I'm using this word purposefully, because you're like, ooh, that doesn't sound that fun. It is fun. Your brain is powerful. You need to tell your brain it's fun, because it is fun to try new things in the bedroom.
Yeah.
It is. Some of them are not going to work. 95% of them are not going to work.
Yeah.
5%, 1% realistically of the things that you try are going to work, and they're going to be awesome and you're going to love them. But we have to be okay with, like what was it? I didn't fail 1,000 times to create a light bulb. I found, 1,000 ways to not make a light bulb.
Right. Yeah.
Is that Thomas Edison? He was just
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I didn't fail 1,002 times. Like, I found 1,002 ways to not make a light bulb.
Yeah.
Like, Thomas Edison had a fantastic growth mindset going on there. Like, he was like, no, I didn't fail. And that's where we need to approach this trial and error. Is you're not failing. You are finding things that don't work for you. And really, we need to make sure that we're communicating in this process of figuring out what works for us, and just being really clear and being clear in the moment. If your husband is doing something that you thought you were going to love, and it is like not hitting right, or maybe it's even like painful or just uncomfortable or whatever, you have to say something right there. And just like, as soon as you don't like something, you have to say it, or else you are going to get dug into a hole. I Kathleen right before we were talking about my Earl Grey story.
That's so true. Oh my gosh.
All right, I'm going to give this quick story. I don't like Earl Grey tea. This is what's going to happen to you if you don't tell your husband you don't like something.
That's right. Poor Ellen.
I don't like Earl Grey tea. And I was living with some friends for like a couple of weeks. And the first morning before we were all going to work, I like came downstairs in the kitchen and was like grabbing some breakfast stuff. And Mark was like, oh, what do you like to drink in the morning? Do you want coffee? I made coffee. Or I was like, oh, I'm more of a tea person. And he's like, oh, here's our selection of teas. And at the time I didn't know that I didn't like Earl Grey tea, but of their like choices of tea, I didn't really want any of them, but I was like, oh, Earl Grey, I like black tea. So I'll drink Earl Grey tea. And I hated it that day. And the whole day I was just like, it's fine. I will just select a different tea tomorrow morning. That's not what happened. The next morning, I got down like a little bit late and Mark made me a cup of Earl Grey tea as a favor. He was so nice. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. And I didn't say anything, right? And for the next 2 weeks, he continued to make me a cup of tea every morning. And I had to drink tea that I didn't like. Because I had like dug myself into this hole.
It's so funny. That was so perfect. That was the perfect marrying of real life.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Kathleen and I were literally talking about this story before we hit record.
We were. It's hysterical.
But this is, we have to address things as soon as they happen that we don't like. And if you're now thinking about, you're like, oh my gosh, there's something my husband does that I just like that I don't like, and I've kind of like let continue. You just got to rip the Band-Aid off. You got to go for it. Yeah. And if you're feeling a lot of like hesitation about like, how do I get those words out? Surprise, surprise. I'm going to tell you about a resource I have.
How about it?
I created a course on how to talk about sex and how to bring up these difficult conversations and the kind of conversations to have. And so that is the Let's Talk About It course. There'll be a link in the show notes for it. That course is like, if you're just like, I just don't even know how to, how to like approach this. I don't know. You're looking for that confidence in how to have these conversations and how to ask your husband for the things that you want, or how to like tell your husband you don't like something, or how to like communicate in the moment about what you want. That course is what you're looking for. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Right? It. Well, I would love to backtrack for a second to sort of set us up for success, because when we're talking about this imagination exercise in particular, let's talk about how we're going to enter into that exercise. What is the atmosphere to which we will enter into that exercise? Is it when you are driving the kids to school in the morning and everyone's fighting in the back of the car? Is that an appropriate time to enter the exercise? No, it's not. Okay.
Not at all.
Not
at all.
Is it at any other stressful time where you're like running around, you're feeling chaotic, you're not focused, you're not relaxed? Like, do not try to enter into this exercise during any of those times of your day, which probably feel like the majority if you're a person like me. What should we do? How can we do it? We need to set aside time where we can feel relaxed, where we can feel free to just let our imagination go, not when we're distracted in any other way or sense. And distraction's always going to creep in. Like, that's always going to be a part of it. But we can do it in the shower, right? If you're not someone who brings your toddler into the shower sometimes because she doesn't leave you alone, like me. Like, when you're by yourself in the shower, even like go to bed, see if you can get to bed like a little bit early, right? Even if it's like 10 minutes early, get into bed, lay yourself under your blankets, in your sheets. Sometimes I heard someone say that before, like to sort of like prepare themselves for sex even, they'll just go to their bed and get totally undressed and just lay there naked, just like by themselves, and just like feeling the sheets and just like sort of just getting in touch with that like sensual side, just like in what you can feel against your skin, right? Doing that by yourself, just laying there, tapping into those like sensual, like, you know, feelings, and then letting your imagination go, that would be a great way to do it. But the point is, this is not something that you can do just any time of your day, or that you should do.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it any time of your day, but not that you necessarily should. If you really want to tap in and figure out, have like a really accurate sort of imaginary experience, right? Like you want to set yourself up for success by being as relaxed as possible, and even sort of just tapping into that sensuality if you can, if time allows, and you know, whatever, the planets align.
Yeah. Well, and I want to caveat really quick, because you said, oh, you can do it anytime. And let's just be sensitive here. Like, we're talking about this exercise, this imaginative exercise is an incredibly good way to get yourself prepared for sex, to like get in the mood. It is very highly probable that you will feel some slight or maybe even lots of sexual arousal. And we don't want to frustrate that sexual arousal if sex is like not on the table.
Yeah.
So let's say that you are avoiding pregnancy and you're in your fertile window. Don't do this exercise.
Not the best time.
Like, wait until you are more in available days, and allow that natural sexual arousal that's going to come from this imaginative exercise. Let that help you get in the mood for sex. So it's like, if you're like, wow, the best time for me to do this is like before the kids wake up and like when the house is quiet, like, is that okay? You know, I think that's something like I can't say yes or no, because that's something you're going to need to figure out yourself. Like, if it is appropriate for you to be like what is your level of sexual arousal that's happening in this imaginative exercise? And you're allowed to stop, right? Like, you're allowed to start imagining it. And then you're like, oh, whoa, I'm getting like super sexually aroused. And like, we're not going to go have sex right now. And I should pause and wait for this later. Or for some of you, that actually might be super helpful.
Yes.
Let's say that you have sex planned later in that night. It actually might be super helpful for you to do this exercise in the morning and have these things kind of rolling around lightly in the back of your brain, so that all day your body is like preparing to have sex. That's going to be it's going to be different woman to woman. And that is something you're going to have to kind of just work out for yourself. Yeah. And, one of the things that I said right at the beginning of the episode is like, we don't want to intentionally sexually arouse ourselves if sex is not on the table. And so it's really okay if you like start this exercise and you're like, oh, whoa, I'm getting too sexually aroused. And then just stop. If you're journaling, just close the journal, go walk outside, get a glass of water, whatever you need to do, just change activities, or just start thinking about something else, start reading a book. Books can be super helpful to get our mind off of a thought process, because we require our imagination to read books, especially like fiction, like a novel would be like an excellent thing to do. And so, don't worry about that. You're not like putting yourself in the near occasion of sin or something by trying this out. This is just, you need to test it. If you're feeling guilt about it, it never hurts to go to confession. Like, it just, we need to reframe confession. Confession is not, I broke these rules.
Right.
And now I need to go tell the priest about them. Like, confession is, God, I was not perfectly pointed toward you at all times of my day. Because we never are. And it's saying, God, I'm so sorry that I let my attention go in all these different ways, and I wasn't like focusing on you and doing everything for your glory. Please help me to, focus back on doing everything for your glory. Like, that's confession. It is not this like, I broke these rules, I didn't check the boxes, and so now I just need to like go to detention and like get my punishment. Like, no, that is not confession.
Yeah.
So just, don't be afraid. Like if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not really sure if that was okay or not okay. Like that's not scrupulosity. That is just like, I don't actually know. And so therefore let's go ask, right? Let's go to confession and say, hey, this happened and I feel guilty about it. I'm not really even sure if it's a sin or not. And the priest can help. Like, that's the point. The priest can help you counsel and figure that out. So anyway, that's my confession soapbox.
No, it's great. It's great. Confession's always a good thing. Never a bad thing.
All right. Go use your mind.
Go use your imagination.
Thanks so much for listening. If you are not already following us on Instagram, be sure to check us out at Charting Toward Intimacy. And if you listen to podcasts on a platform that gives you the option to rate or review, we'd love for you to do that because it helps us spread the word about the podcast. If you ever have questions, comments, or episode topic ideas, please reach out to us. We love to hear from you. You can reach out on Instagram or send us an email. Our email is in the show notes. Until next time.